Cool. Maybe we'll get going, guys. Obviously, just feel free to pop in any chat questions or anything in there. Bit of an interactive session, I think, today, Kurt, because we've got Craig on. But I'll let you do an intro into what we're going to be talking about, Kurt, if that's all right.
Yes, thank you, Julian, and welcome everyone. Just a big shout out to Build Exact Mitre 10 for hosting this, and everyone on the live call as well. Thank you so much for joining. I know how valuable your time is, and I'm excited. Like we were just talking before we went live. Like this is absolutely pivotal. I think some of you on the call, no doubt, will already be aware of what we're going to be talking about, which is um, commonly referred to as ECI or EBI, early contractor involvement or early builder involvement in the pre-construction phase, which is by far and away the most important part or phase of the construction process. And we're going to get into it. And we've got Craig DeCourcy on the call. I've known for a couple of years now, and who's been working through this process, right? So, guys, this is what I'll refer to, and again, I mentioned this to you guys before, like what I consider the new frontier for construction. So recently, I heard that more than half the builders in the Western world are now charging for quotes. And that's something I've been talking about since 2008 when I first started working with builders exclusively. That is, been coaching since 2004, but in 2008 exclusively, and then really started pushing this charge for quote things a process, and we've seen that change. But the value management process, what we're going to talk about today, I honestly believe that in maybe 3, 5, 8 years from now, every builder is going to be using this process because of the benefits to all the stakeholders. So I'll just give you a quick synopsis. So as a builder, when you value manage, and Craig will be talking about this, you exit the tender process. You will no longer need to do a competitive tender. Okay, so for some of you, that may sound like a pipe dream, but the benefits to the other stakeholders, so the architect and the client, are as big. And again, we'll get into this, right? And this is why I fully believe this is the new frontier. And every single one of you guys on this call should be, and hopefully will be, following this sort of process after today's call. And in fact, you already are. Okay, so we're going to be talking about the specifics, exactly how Craig uses this process in his business and how he has for the last 2 years. And there's other builders that have been doing this as well. But we want to give you some clarity around exactly what you can do, because it's very exciting. And not only does it benefit you, the builder, the architect, your clients, off the chart exponentially, but it's going to help raise standards in the industry, which is really what we're trying to do here. So hopefully I've sort of set the stage. Where should we go from here, Julian? Do you have a specific question, or should we go over to Craig to sort of explain what he does and how he uses this process? Or maybe
Yeah,
should we go back to how it started?
yeah, Craig. Obviously, thanks for joining. I missed that bit at the start. Sometimes I forget the formalities that we do in these initial webinar things. So thanks for joining, and thanks to the other Craig from Hazard Co. So
Oh yes, shout out to Hazard Co. Sorry.
I thought I'd make sure we get that in. So the Craig
Yes.
and Craig is going to be a bit of a challenge, I think. But Craig O'Leary from Hazuko has said that we should refer to him as Craigo. So we might try and adopt that today. It sounds really weird coming from a British person saying Craigo, but it just sounds really unnatural for me to say. But I'm gonna roll with it. But maybe Craig,
Yes.
if you just give us a little bit of an idea about maybe what led you into this. Like we had this conversation a little bit beforehand, I thought was really good of where
Hmm.
this initially came from in terms of what you were doing
Yeah.
before and where you got this idea from.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, thanks for having me, guys. But basically, it came down to doing a lot of work pre-construction, right? From a sales process point of view, all the way to trying to sign a contract. The amount of work you'd put in with architects, clients, etc., before you even knew you had the job secured, was a pile of work. A lot of it not paid for clearly. And then by the end of it, we could be going into tender against 2 or 3 other builders. We've offered all of our advice, etc., etc. Everyone would have, who's listening today, would have experienced that if they're not doing it right now. And the idea for me came about my pre-construction services was getting into the sales process. I nailed that down first and foremost, like first point of contact, how many times we want to contact the client, architect, etc. for our leads, basically, our sales leads. And then leading on from that was actually have a structured process with your pre-construction services. And it came from the sort of the way architects and other designers set up their fee proposals. You know, I used to reach out to landscape designers, architects, interior designers, whatever, when I had a client who would want professional advice, and they'd always come back with a set proposal with the amount of work they're doing and a stage setup, right? So I thought, why can't I do this for my pre-construction services and actually have something that is structured, it's set out to the client or the architect, whoever's supplying you the lead, and it just gives a really a structured process to what you're delivering and deliverables. That's the key, right? Everyone wants to know deliverables, how many meetings you have, and just your engagement all the way through to signing a contract.
Yeah, I think you raise a good point there. I think what sort of happened to the construction industry over a long period of time, and we raised this point a little bit, is that a lot of builders have been sort of the whipping boy for everyone else around. Like it's been, you know, getting the pricing back from the supplier. You've got to wait for that. Getting the client to make a decision, the architect, the bookkeeper initially, when it was, you know, a little while ago before you had all the online stuff where it was very much relying on them to keep you up to date, and tax conversations are only once a year. So it was very like the builder often was kind of like on their own in the middle of it with everyone else kind of surrounding them.
Yeah.
And processes are a huge one. Like, and that's the same if you're using software, if you're in business, if you're going anywhere. Like, I think if you've got a strong process, you're communicating with a client, it helps the client understand where they're going. And I'd imagine for you, Craig, is that you probably, what would be the percentage of people that are building a home for the first time versus have already built a home in the past?
It depends. You get a sort of a split varied, especially what I'm in. I mean, we're all in different niches, I would assume, but I'm more in that architectural sort of renovation extension space to like period heritage homes. That's sort of my niche. Generally, the areas that I'm building in, it normally is possibly the second time.
Yeah.
You still get the newbies who have never done it before and they're diving in to try and build their dream home. But a lot of the time it is that, you know, they might have done a little kitchen bathroom setup, but they have a little bit of experience in some type of building or renovating. That's sort of my clientele. Could be different for other people. But I think the key and the overriding factor to this is where I've jumped in is now I kind of want to lead the process. I don't want to be led by architects and clients. And guys, seriously, you'll be so surprised that the reception I've got from architects and clients when you've got a structure in place is like they see you as so valuable. Like clients just see you as man, this guy's like, he's so professional. He's set up like, you know, we've spoken to a builder and he's come around, he's set in a lounge room and he's just done all this sort of stuff. But, you know, you're sending out the information pack, sending out your process, your guidelines, your structure. You know, I'm trying to lock them in down the track for a start date if it's possible. You know, it is just such it's such a rigid structure that they see you as wow, look at the value that this guy's putting into the job. Like, you know, he must be so good at what he does. And at the end of the day, we're all doing the same thing, right? Whether you're structured or not, you're so valuable.
Can I
And
just
you know,
jump
builders
in?
should never forget that you know, I personally think we're the most valuable, right? But regardless of how you see yourself in the relationship between the key stakeholders, you add more value than most, right? So try and stand out and be as professional as you can.
Absolutely. If I could jump in, guys, that is spot on, man. And we're talking about this just before, how most builders and they're just unaware of the value they bring. All right. So today, if we can just increase that awareness and help you see what you're already doing, you're already doing or following this value management process. And all we're going to do is put two things, put some structure around it. Craig's going to share that. And then hopefully get you to step up and recognize that you need to just lead people through this process. So people being the architect and the client, and then adding value. But ultimately, if we talk about, because some people are going like, what's actually the issue here? Because Craig, or what are we talking about? To get clarity, I just want to zoom out because you're providing a solution, Craig, and you're providing a solution to a problem, and a big problem is at the moment is price shock, getting the numbers accurate, which is why charging for quotes has been the thing that we've been pushing. Just not myself. There's other coaches out there as well. We've all been just, shouting it out to anyone who'll stand still long enough to listen. And the reason you charge for a quote is so that you can slow things down, ideally get an estimator who's better at quoting than you and getting the numbers watertight so that, people don't fall off their chairs and can't proceed. Because the conventional wisdom and the way of doing things is someone goes to an architect or a designer first, gets their hard documentation, then they engage a builder and they get the pricing. And then recently, price shock has been so severe that I've heard as much as 70% of designs aren't getting built. All right. And I can't tell you that, like, I'm speaking to a lot of builders every week. The examples, Julian, we've spoken about some examples, right? Where it's $1.2 million budget, $3 million build, $500,000 budget, $1.4 million build when the quotes come in, and then there's 2 million coming at, 3 and 3.5. The worst was a $2 million budget, $100,000 in 18 months spent with an architect, got their design done, then went to a quantity surveyor. The quantity surveyor came in at 1.7. It was a $7 million project, right? I can show you the facades. It's just mind blowing, right? So no doubt guys listening can relate to the price shock. And then Julian, you talk about how the builders get whipped. Well, you as the builder are the messenger that gets shot, boom, because no one wants to hear after 12 months through going through a painful design process, have their dream home, everything just comes crashing down. Sorry, you're not going to build it. They think you the one that is inflating your pricing or whatever it is. So the price shock is a big problem. I'm sure anyone just mention in the comments if you've seen or have experienced this, right? Big problem equals a big solution, right? Charging for quotes goes a long way down the path, but this is sales process and marketing optimization through a process that ensures the person's budget aligns with what they eventually spend. That's it, right? That's the value that you bring. Now, if I'm about to build a house and I want to spend $2 million, the value in me being able to collaborate with an architect and a builder who know each other, and the builder brings expertise around specialist contractors and materials and build process so that I get exactly what I want for the money I want to spend. That is invaluable. Like, why would not every single builder on the planet specialize in a certain area? Like, I don't know if you mentioned, Craig, you're in Victoria, right? Just for people listening, because there are people from all over the country and overseas. And you do heritage style homes. Like, someone who wants to build that style home in your geographical location is going to be able to get exactly what they want for the money they're going to spend. And we all know it's carnage out there. Like, people are getting, and that example I gave you, sorry, I'm ranting here, but the $2 million budget, $7 million build, like, is that just someone screwed up on the numbers, or is that freaking malpractice? Because there's no recourse for these architects. They don't refund the money, right?
No.
Money doesn't. So, like, again, this for me is the new frontier. This is where the industry needs to go to restore trust to the building industry. But it is going to require that builders step up. You guys need to step up, recognize your value, to take the lead in a collaboration with the client and the architect, and then have some structure to it. That's it. Yeah. And then, life's a beautiful thing. Imagine never having to do a competitive tender again. Because, guys, what it means is you can crank your margin up. And I'll say this, right? Are we allowed to swear on this, Julian? I won't. You could, through the freaking...
I'll tell them to bleep it if we need to.
You can put your margins up, guys. Like I'm known, like, builders come to me now. Like, I don't want to try and plug myself, but it's seven-figure club. Yeah, netting $1 million in a 12-month period after all expenses, including wages to sell, for about 200 grand, right? The sweet spot, 6 or 7 mil turnover, 25, 10, 15, 25 gross margin, 10% overheads to turnover metric, 15% net profit. I know I'm racing through this, but we've got guys looking at entering the 7-figure club now at $4.5 million turnover with a 35% margin. So $4.5 million turnover, wherever you are, regional, metro, what country, it doesn't matter. That's not a big turnover. That's a small business netting $1 million after wages, right? So then you've got a tax problem and you do your own developments, build a property portfolio, whatever it is. But this value management process means you can get your margin up. And if anyone listening thinks I'm talking about profiteering, and maybe these clients going, hey, this guy's just trying to get builders to make more money, they're making enough. That's bullshit, right? Because this value management process is ensuring that we eliminate the casualties. The 70% of people that spend time and money that never ever get their build done, and it saves people money, right? The data, I got the data, right? It's the build time gets reduced by on average 10%, and the costs, or the costs 10% reduction, and the build time 7%. So on a $2 million build, you can save $200,000. So you can increase your margin and still save your client money. You know what I mean? This is the whole point. And then the architects are not going to have that emotional backlash of their designs not getting built. So they benefit, the client benefits off the chart, and so do you as the builder. So I need to get that off my chest. But Craig, yeah, sorry, over to you.
Yeah. Well, what you're saying is true. I mean, everyone out there would have gone through the phase of whether they're tendered against other builders, or someone's asked them for a quote. The quote gets issued, and it's over budget, right? Now, what happens? Client, architect, whoever's involved, they'll come to you and say, hey, how can we get this down to budget, right? Everyone would be doing that. I guarantee you there wouldn't be anyone out there who hasn't had to sort of look through the plans and say, oh, well, if we change this material, if we, reduce the size here, if we, look at the fixtures and fittings, if we look at the joinery, whatever it is, right, you'll be helping along the journey to make sure you achieve the client's budget. We're just reversing that and saying we're jumping in early to maintain the client's budget through the whole process, right? Temper everyone's expectations, right at the start, making sure we're price checking as we go, right? We're offering valuable and accurate pricing, not quantity surveyor pricing, which is square meter rates, where we're offering everyday pricing that we know and trust, right? The client trusts that. The architect loves it because we don't get too far down the line. Like how I set it out is obviously, we do a concept phase. So we get the concept drawings and we'll do a concept range of pricing. And from there, we work out where the client's budget sits for what's been drawn in a concept phase. And I guide it with how much work I need to do to get to that client's budget through the next phase, which is the value management phase, right? So that's either, yep, we're on track. We can head straight to working drawings, right? So the client hasn't wasted money on engineering and all these things before they actually know that it can be built. We look at the buildability and say, okay, you're well over budget, right? Let's have a look at the concept right now before we get all the way down to the end of the line. If we can't build it, what do we need to pull back on, right? The client doesn't even know what's going inside the house just yet. They haven't really gone that far. It's just a concept, right? Then they work out, okay, there's a fair bit of work to do, and we get to work, right? And we start to either reduce things. Hey, we might even add things if the budget's on track. All of a sudden, you're building the relationship between all the key stakeholders. Everyone's on the same page. So by the time you get to signing a contract, they're like, let's go, let's just build, right? We're on target, we're on budget. We're not even going to bother talking to any other builders because you've worked on this for 6 months, 8 months, 9 months. We trust what you're saying. We've worked so hard with you. Let's just get started.
You're adding value every step of the way.
Every step of the way.
Most I'll talk about 70% of designs not getting built, but there's another percentage where they have to redesign. And you've got examples where maybe they want to spend $2 million, it comes in at 2.75. Then the redesign, just the engineering changes and redesigns, another $25,000, which if the architect's a sociopath, they don't mind. They're like lawyers, they're going to keep invoicing, right?
Yep.
So that needs to stop, and it can be prevented by your early involvement. You had an example the other day where There's a couple of things like where the architect moved the wall in 0.5 meter and it reduced the price by 150 grand, but you wouldn't even notice with the finished product really the change, right? But you had
Correct.
another one, I think it was 900,000 out at concept. So there's work to be done, but significantly less work than if they had all their hard documentation.
Yeah, look, we've been through it all, like from the start of being, and that's why I got sick of it. I got sick of getting working drawings, clients saying we're kind of ready to go. Can you price this? And got sick of the fact that we're always over budget, right? And it's not because I'm adding margin or anything. It's just the way it was drawn. They got poor advice around, costing of where it was going to sit and land. And I was doing all of this work with the architect in the background for the client to try and meet their budget. And I was like, this is just so much time wasting. Why do I always get the working drawings? And we're talking years ago here. Why did I always get the working drawings and have to work back from there? Right? The client gets pissed off because basically they're starting to pull things out of their project. So, they're deleting things rather than looking at adding things or pricing against other things. Can we put this in our project, or can we afford this? It's simply, no, you can't. Let's pull that out. Let's pull this out. Let's lose the pool. Let's lose, whatever it is. It was just a terrible process, right? It was just terrible to be involved in, to tell the client you can't afford this. So
Yeah. I think that's the one, like I was about to jump in there, that we talk about like adding value, but I think sometimes in the older processes it's like you're actually ruining value, I think, to some degree, because there's a lot of thing about the financial impact and things like that of the project, but the emotional impact, I think if you've gone to an architect and you've worked with an architect for however long it is, and you've built in your mind your dream home, it's impossible for people not to be thinking, oh, kids' room, and there's a pool, and I've got entertaining area, and I've got my friends over, and da 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 da. And then you get to this point, and you think, this is my home, and I'm going to go to this builder, and he's going to give me a price, and this is what we think the price is going to be, and all of a sudden it comes in 500 grand more expensive. I think emotionally, like outside of the budget and all that kind of stuff, that's obviously a problem. But like emotional, like that must be a hard thing to hear and to hit, where you go, oh, maybe part of our dreams now, 3, 4, 5 months ago, 6 months ago, now we can't achieve that.
Yeah. Well, just to tell you a little story about that, the last tender I did, right? The very last tender I did, the client's budget was 1.9 mil, right? We came in at 2.7, right? We put in a value management strategy to try and reduce it by about 450K. The client turned around a week later, like 1 week later, and bought a house already done in the same area. They were just like, forget it. Like, if we're not going to get what we want. So they spent 2 years with the architect designing their forever home in a great spot and loved the area, etc. They had to forgo it, and they just basically threw those plans in the bin and bought a house, in the same area for what they could afford. That was already done. That's when it was like, hey, there's something wrong here. There's something completely wrong.
Yeah. Craig, and I'm assuming that if you're not charging for quotes, right, that there's other builders within their portfolio that are not charging for quotes. So when they come into you and you're 500 grand over, they're going to go to the next builder and say, hey, can you quote this?
Correct.
And to the next builder and say, hey, can you quote this? Then they're coming back to you and going, well, this builder told me it's this much. And now it's just become a race to the bottom, right?
Yeah.
And not only is that a pain in the ass for you, but the customer journey is pretty crap around that. You know that if you're charging for quotes, most likely you're the only one they're talking to. So that customer journey is improved. And if you're charging for quotes and you've got the process in place, you're probably not going to get to that point. I like relating the building process to Uber, because Uber has been so successful because they provide transparency in a number of options, and those are your fixed costs. Whereas you book a cab, it gives you a ballpark figure. You don't know when it's coming, and you don't really know what it's going to cost. So you're going to book Uber every day of the week because you know exactly the process, you know where they are, and you know what it's going to cost.
Yep, exactly. Spot on.
That's a great. Sorry, just quickly. That's a great point there, Craig O'Leary. That's you made me think about cost plus versus fixed price there when you mentioned taxi versus Uber. And that's exactly, there's a good analogy right there.
Yeah. Yep.
I think as well, sorry to cut you off there, Craig, but what I think would be really good today is that you're going to be talking about things that people find or feel like maybe they can't implement it. Maybe I don't feel like I can charge for quotes. I don't feel like I can do that because I'm struggling for work. I'm all that kind of stuff. The amount of times in this industry that I've heard people say I can't do it, and 4 years later everyone does it. I mean, I'm in estimating job management software, and when I first started at Build Exact, most people were like, "Nah, it's all up here, mate. I don't need any software." Now most people understand that they need software, and most people are using software. I'd imagine 10 years ago, 5 years ago, I'm not sure how long Hazuko has been around, Craig O, but I'd imagine if you said to a builder 10 years ago, yeah, you're going to get people to sign a QR code outside a building site, and then they're going to fill all this stuff in on their phone, and then that's going to manage my health and safety. I imagine people would be like, there is no way I'm going to be able to do that. And you just head in the sand. Same thing with like online. I was in MYOB before, online accounting software. Nah, online's never going to work. It's never going to work. MYOB had that position. Xero came along, absolutely wiped the floor with them. So I think sometimes you this mindset of like, it's what's always happened, it's what's always worked. I can't change that. I think what you're talking about there about the leadership is that if you lead from the front on that and you lead that change, it happens. We see people that are utilizing mobile apps for our software. We see people that are charging for quotes. 4 years ago, 5 years ago, Kurt, that was the 1 in 20 or 1 in 50 were doing that, and now it's 50% or something like that, right?
Look, yeah, you're right, Julian. Look, mindset's one thing. So that people like are going, I can't do this, I'll never be able to do it, can't charge for quotes. That's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You can't just go, oh, it doesn't just magically happen, right? It's about raising standards. You need a process. And I think there's some good questions coming through there, Julian.
Yeah.
People want to understand what is the process, because we can talk about leadership and stepping up and adding value, but what are the specific processes that Craig follows? And just on that, I'll hand over to you, Craig, to explain that in a sec. But you need to understand, guys, that it's an education-based sales and marketing process. I don't like using the word sales and marketing, but at the front end, before you start building, when you're dealing with a prospective client that's not a client yet, you need to educate them on the fact that price shock is a real thing, that it's important for you to get the numbers right, and that you have a best practice process for ensuring accuracy with the numbers so they get what they want, right? So you actually genuinely care, and you care enough to put a process in place to help with that. There was a question I saw pop up on the screen, Craig, and maybe you can start with this because it is early stage with the value management process. And it was, how do you actually price a concept? Because that's step one with your process is, okay, let's look at the concept or SketchUp and then a ballpark figure. And that's where you said, I think you told me the other day, it was a $3 million project. It was 900K over at concept. So tell us a bit about that first step and early stage.
Yeah, cool. So obviously, once we've been engaged in the early stage by the client, all right, we've set out, basically, we look at their plans. So they'll send their concept plans, and we'll look at the size of the project and what's involved, right? From there, we'll be able to give them a stage one price, which is at the end of that stage. It's basically we meet one meeting via Zoom to meet the key stakeholders, whether that's the designers, architects, clients, whatever, all together, just to get an overall feel, introduce each other into the project. And then from there, we'll get their concept plans and we'll give them an estimated price around what work's going to be required to give them a concept price at the end of it, right? Now, how you do the concept price is whether you're set up personally or you can outsource that too, that concept pricing. There's other people like ProCalc, these type of people that are out there that can help you around providing a concept price, right? And that's tailored to your needs. So they tailor it to your margins, they tailor it to your areas, they tailor it to the type of build it is. So there is people that you can use to outsource that, right? But at the end of that stage one, there's a concept price, and that's a range, okay? Because we don't have working drawings, we don't have anything discussed there. So that's the initial stage one meeting, all right? Any questions or RFIs I have, so there might be, after I've looked into the concept plans, there might be RFIs I have to go back to the client, the architect with about certain aspects of the project, so I get a better understanding. From there, I produce them a concept range and price. Once they get that price, I'll follow back up with them And that will lead into stage 2, the actual big chunk of work, which could be 6 months of work, 9 months of work, depending on where they're at. And we will get their budget, right, after that. If they want to enter stage 2, we'll get their budget. And from there, I can work out the cost it's going to take them from the concept phase right through to working drawings and to build the thing. Okay. And in that, I'll structure how many meetings are in there, whether it's 3 key stakeholder meetings between all the designers, how many times that we're going to meet outside of that, etc. I'll work that out based on whether they're 500,000 over budget, whether they're right on track. I'll know whether, okay, there's not that much work to do. And then I'll structure a fee around that. Now that fee is it can be anything. It doesn't really matter. But for me, it's somewhere between 6-7K, right? Which sounds like a lot of money. But it's not really.
Not when 70%, in some architecture firms, 70% of the designs are not even getting built.
Yeah.
Right? So they're paying 60 grand for a design that goes nowhere. 6 or 7 grand to make sure that you're on track. We've got guys charging 10 to 12,000 on $1 million project to do the quote.
Yeah.
They're charging to do the quote, and people are happily paying it, because most people look at it and go, oh no, who's going to do that? But the person dropping $1 million is going to do that, right?
Yeah,
if you
cookie home cut,
handing over $1 million, which nowadays that's not a lot of money, right? The average home price. So
yeah, that's on average to size and size, but the price is kind of irrelevant. You structure that to however you feel, whether that's $1,000, whether it's 500, whether it's 2 grand. The price is kind of irrelevant to me. There's a transaction being taken place, and if a client's willing to forego money, they're invested, and you're invested, right? That's the way I explain it to my clients. Is like, you can get a builder who'll do all this for free, no problem. But how actually invested are they in your project, right? If we have a financial transaction, I'm working for you now. I'm invested, right? Because I know I basically chalk this in that this is going to be a build for me. In my mindset, I'm going to tell the client that, but that's how I'm thinking. If they've made a transaction, they're keen, they're looking to sign up, they're looking to build this thing, right? They're foregoing money. If there's a builder out there that, which I've heard all before, oh, there's a builder up the road, he's going to do all this for free. And I just say, that's great. If he's doing all this for free for you and 10 other people, how invested and how accurate are those figures going to be? How hard is he actually working to provide an accurate quote?
Yeah, I think Craig as well, it's like all communication education at the front end. Like, so this isn't a surprise. And like that whole thing of like people are doing it for free, it's like they're spending a lot of hours doing that. If they're getting anywhere as accurate as you, they're spending a lot of time and money to do that. Like that's lost on their business. How feasible is that?
There's no contest.
Doing it? Yeah.
It's not, and also you got to think about it for 1 second, right? Like, you get what you pay for. You get nothing for nothing. If anyone listening's ever had a friend or family member build their website or do some graphic design or something for them, because they're like, hey, my cousin's a graphic designer. What recourse do you have? If you don't like the website they build or the look of something, how do you go, if it's late, what can you do? Most people with money, myself included, I would rather pay money so that I have recourse. I can slam my fist on the desk and go, hey, where's my freaking website? I paid 5 grand or whatever it is. You said it would be ready. You know what I mean? You don't have that if you don't pay any money. So most people prefer that for that exact reason, prefer to pay for that reason.
Yeah.
Craig, have you developed a ideal customer profile which fits your sales process? Because obviously someone who's willing to pay is the ideal customer. Obviously someone who's not willing to pay, you probably don't want to work with, because it's going to create more work down the line, right? So have you designed a ideal customer profile, and maybe what does that look like for your business?
Yeah, look, I wouldn't say it's actually a profile as such. I mean, most of the stuff we do is for younger families. That's just the way it turns out. It's, someone doing an extension renovation or something like that who needs more space, right, for their kids. So, 9 times out of 10, it's young families for us. That's who we're working for. But look, every day we have people who balk at the process. Every day we'll have people go, "Oh, really? You're charging for this?" And it's like, well, straight away, that's kind of a red flag for me. It's like, well, if you don't want to forego $1,000 or something to find out what your $2 million build costs, well, that's cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's fine.
Yeah.
Like you can do it. You can do what you like, but honestly, nine times out of 10, the people are invested, right? They're like, great. This guy he's explained everything he does at the start, what's involved. There's a lot of work involved. It's not like, it's not like we're just in the back doing nothing. Like, we're working really hard for them. We're explaining it right at the start. They're like, this is great. I know exactly what I'm going to get, right? When I pay him, whatever the fee is irrelevant. When I pay him at the end, I know exactly what I'm getting from him, right? Where the guy that knocked on the door before, I don't have a clue what I'm getting. It's just, am I going to get accurate pricing? Am I going to get it written on a piece of paper? Like, that's the whole part of it, I think.
I think people are willing to pay money when they see value in it, and it's how you communicate that value and what does that value look like? Because obviously, building, I just go get a builder. They got heaps of time. I'll just go get a builder and they can quote it. Your time is valuable. Your resources are valuable. I guess if you can, for anyone else on the call, and we try to do the same when we provide a demo to customers, they want to walk away with some value there. And I think if you can break down what that value looks like, then they go, wow, that's actually pretty reasonable. Like, that's actually pretty good. And I'm going to get X, Y, Z, and I'm going to know exactly where I stand at the end of that.
Yeah, that's a great point. Sorry, just about it, because I think this is an important time to communicate that, Craig, like how you communicate that value, because value at the end of the day requires relevance, right? People will not see value if you're a builder and you built a medical center and someone needs a heritage home. And you show them the amazing medical center you built. It's not relevant. They're not going to be relevant. So specializing is one thing. And then if you can layer your specialty, like do heritage homes, plus maybe eco-friendly materials and smart technology, and someone wants all three, the relevance is through the freaking roof. So you've niched yourself. You're in a geographical location, which is also relevant again. But then there's a very specific client education process you take them through to communicate the value. So do you want to share that? Like what resources do you use? Video, brochures, whatever, to communicate how you can.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have a story video that sits at the bottom of my email. So that's just basically something we created that goes out once we contact the client or for the first time, right? It'll sit at the bottom of my email. They'll click on, and it gets to know me and my family and the whole shooting match about our company, which is great. But we send them basically the welcome pack, or basically our sort of mission statement, what we can do, capture that in the initial phase, and then with that is the whole pre-construction services element. So your stage 1, 2, 3 is all captured in the doc, and that clearly explains what we do from start to finish, right? It's professional. It's definitely professional. It's detailed. Like I said, there's the video story that they can click on, that they can look at us. There's basically our mission statement of our company, what we can and can't do, and what we niche in. And then along with that is the pre-construction services as well, about, hey, if you engage us, this is what you're going to receive.
You've got a PDF document that outlines what's
100%.
involved in getting the numbers accurate, plus a brochure, a whole
education. Just education document around why it's so accurate.
This is so important because it comes back to Julian's point about guys going, well, this doesn't work. You can't just do that. You can't just charge for quotes. You can't just tell people I'm going to charge 20 grand for a thing. But once you explain it to someone, and part of the explaining is pointing out the fact that there's carnage out there. There's price shock's a real thing. And most people are, getting to the end point with hard documentation and then falling off their chair when they see the final price. and that's not going to happen with you, then if you explain that to people, what most people will do is not just believe you and go, "Oh, okay, cool. So where do I sign?" They will go and do some due diligence, right? They go online, they jump on ChatGPT or Grok, and then they'll speak to friends and family and go, "Hey, is this true?" And they get a tsunami, an overwhelming response of yes. You know, hell yeah. And then they realize, shit, this guy's actually trying to help us.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, at the end of the day, that's what we are trying to do. Like, we're literally trying to make sure that we're putting our energy in the right clients and the right jobs. People will actually understand that, and builders out there who try and start this process will realize that they actually will work a lot less around their sales process because of this. So rather than irons in fires everywhere, trying to get leads and generate work, it'll be the opposite. It'll come in. It'll come in sort of. It'll come in not slowly, but it'll come in like once a month, twice a month. But they'll be quality leads. They'll be like, oh, our neighbour built with you up the road. Loved the whole process right to the end. It was fantastic. We're about to do an extension, and they're almost sort of signing up. So it's more quality, I'd say, than quantity. That's probably what I was looking for there. So when you're actually working on this, you're working on it because it's a live project that you've decided that you want to do. Like, it captures everything you're after. It's the perfect client, and away you go. You're probably turning down the ones that you're a little bit iffy about that don't sort of fit your niche. And look, I'm sure there's builders out there right now listening, going, "Oh, this is no way. Like, there's no way that can happen." I was like that too. Don't worry. For sort of 3-4 years ago, I was like, it's so competitive in Melbourne where I am. There's so many builders working with different architects. There's not a chance I'd be sitting in the position I am now of where we've got to. But like I said, I sort of try to go above and beyond. Outsourced a lot of stuff too to help me. Don't try and do it all on your own. We're builders, so make sure you're outsourcing to make yourself look as professional as possible with this process as well. And tailor it to, it's not a one size fits all. Like, I couldn't send my process to another builder who might be doing, I don't know, let's say a knockdown rebuild or something like that. It might be different, right? It may not fit their needs. So tailor it to your needs, how far you want to go. But you're going to be doing this in some facet anyway. Like, I can tell you that. Like, the builders out there, they'll be doing this anyway. So why not make it look professional? Why not structure it and try and stand out? That's all we're trying to do.
Craig, can I just jump in there, mate? When you were putting this together, I would imagine you had an idea, you put it together, and then you started doing it, and maybe it didn't change overnight. It was like maybe you were still doing a little bit of what you were doing before while you were trying to, get this ironed out and the process and stuff. Can you talk about that kind of journey and maybe where you made some errors and how you changed those? Can you just go through that?
Yeah, well, I started out, like I said, basically trying to nail the sales process, right? So a lead would come in, and this other process was not existing at this stage. It was more particularly around how the touch points of the clients and what I'm going to do and how I'm going to structure that. And that was great. And then it sort of led into, okay, I'm going to charge for a quote. But like, to me, that was kind of like, well, I'm just going to do an estimate like everybody else. There's no real difference to it. And you put the fee down and they either say yes or no, or they go to the other builder who's not going to charge, right, for a quote. And I felt like there was still that competition there around, okay, at the end of the day, he's come in and he said he's charging for a quote. So I thought that wasn't really working. You get some people that would say, okay, but at the end of the day, you would accept the drawings as what they were. You would price them and you would still be doing value management after that anyway, right? So there was an element to that where I thought, no, like, how do I sort of guarantee that I'm working with someone that is actually going to sign? That was my thought process around it. what can I do that's adding more value to this so that they're actually going to sign? Because charging for a quote doesn't mean that they're going to sign a contract with you. If you're 200 grand over, they're just going to shop that around and try and get someone cheaper, right? And then, like I said, where it twigged for me was seeing how other industry professionals set up their proposals and how they sort of break it down into stages of involvement. And I thought, can I do something similar? Where, I mean, most clients get wowed by the architect, right? They'll sign into the architect straight away. Like they see a beautiful job he's done and, oh yeah, what's your fees? They'll sign up. So I thought, how can I sort of make myself sort of sit in a little bit of that space? How do I look like that professionally? So that when they see me, they go, well, if we're comparing builders, like I feel like I'm getting a little, yes, he's charging, but I feel like I'm getting a little bit more from this guy than that guy. I feel like he might know his industry a little bit better than that person. And it was a work in progress. Like it really was. Like it didn't get to the stages we got to. There was no sort of concept pricing. It started off with, okay, we're just going to do a value management phase, and we're going to slam some sort of figures on that. And when we get to providing you a tender, if it's over or whatever, we'll work with you to work within your budget. It sort of started that way, and then I thought, well, there's a lot of water that goes under the bridge before you get to that phase. How can I still be involved to try and build their trust, and make sure that they see the value in it, and it just kept progressing from there, and then broke it down into the stages. And what we've found is since we've been doing this exclusively, the actual main part of it, right, is pre-construction is one phase, but this helps construction so much. Like it's a breeze building with these people most of the time, right? Because you've eliminated all the anxieties for the client in this pre-construction phase. There's not so many hidden surprises, right? They trust what you're saying. You've already educated them around, excuse me, some of the hard points of the build, or where there might be a provisional sum placed and why. You've educated them. They're already seeing all these things. So, oh yeah, I remember you said that. When you opened up the subfloor, that there might be, we might have to redo that or whatever. Yeah, cool, no worries. Give us a price. We'll look at it. Like all of these things have happened during pre-construction. So construction is great for them. We just handed over a house the other week, and the client was so excited about the house, but she was kind of like, well, is that it? Like, she loved it. It was like, now what am I going to do? So, you know what I mean? Like where 9 times out of 10 handover's a nightmare. And that's all due to pre-construction. Let me tell you, it really is due to building the relationships with your client and your architect and all the key stakeholders, which is going to help you during construction. It really is.
Yeah, and kind of what I'm picking up there from what you're saying, and Kurt, I think you mentioned this earlier on, is that like if you just try and implement a change, it's like no one's just going to hand over the money to you. No one's just going to pay you more money because you say it's worth more money. I think everything there and what seems like you're saying is you added effectively free value at the beginning to the client. So they're learning about you, they're learning about how you work. You're kind of coaching them through that process before you even actually ask for the money. Whereas I think a lot of people, when they go into charging for quotes or they go into trying to implement changes in their sales process, they just kind of look for that initial thing. And often it's the reason I can't do it is because the client's just going to say no. And it's like, okay, well, maybe you can make changes so that the client says yes before actually even getting to that point.
Yeah.
There's a process.
And look, it will happen. It will happen. Like if you work hard at it and you come up with something that works for you, it definitely will happen. I can tell you that 100%. You'll think it's really hard. You'll think, oh, no, there's no way I could do that. But it'll start slowly. It might be one job out of 4 or something. You run this process to start with, and then slowly but surely that'll turn to 2 out of 4. And if you know what I mean, right? And then all of a sudden you filled your book, and you're like, well, I'm full now. Now I can really start to look at exclusively running this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
if I could just say, look, you've figured this all out for yourself, Craig. Like obviously we've been working together and you had a sales process and you knew how to charge for quotes and sign preliminary agreements, but you've like figured out how to take it to a point where you now offer this value management process, which is optimizing the process you started with. But
Yeah.
no one listening needs to go through that same process that you did. Like Julian, I'm happy to share with anyone who's listening. If you guys want a copy of the sales process or breakdown of the value management process, I'll email it out if that's okay, Julian, to offer that to everyone on the call.
Absolutely.
Just email info@builderscoach.com.au.
I'll put it in the chat. All right.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. Just if I could just say, like what you were talking about there, Craig, build process, a lot smoother, the client experience, all of that is marketing, right? You got a happy client, it goes smooth. That is, it flies in the face of what most people experience when they build. But the data backs up what you're saying, where ECI, this early contractor involvement or builder involvement, facilitates faster project timelines to the tune of, and this is, I reckon, it's conservative, 10%. There's a 10% quicker, smoother, because there's less inefficiency. There's less issues. Decisions have been made. It's the same as programming a job well, using some sort of scheduling tool like BuildExact, as opposed to just a gunshot start and just running the job out your head, which sadly a lot of guys still do. What I was hoping to do next, if it's okay, is talk about the architects, because the clients are one thing, and the value to a client, I mean, it's pretty glaringly obvious what the benefit to them is. They're the ones with the money, right? But what about the architects? Like, where's the value to them, and what's your process for educating the architects and how they responded to this?
Yeah. Well, that's actually a good one, because they're probably more, no, not more important, but for a steady stream of work, if you can get a couple of architects on board that believe in your process, that know that it gives them value. Some will be a bit gun shy. They still live in the the 80s of we must tender, we must tender, we must tender. That's okay, and that you won't get everyone on board, but we do have a couple of architects that just 100% see the benefit and really won't do a project any other way than trying to engage a builder. Most clients are pretty forthcoming once they educate them around why it's such a good thing, because they understand that it's helping the architect in design and maximizing what they can afford and what they can actually what they can do with their project. So educating the architect is huge for this to work, based on the fact that they'll understand about redraws, drawing something that doesn't get built, how that makes them look, at the end of a project, being out by, well, shit, why was I out by so much? Like, what was I doing? Also, they don't tell you a lot of the time too that clients change during a design. I was talking to an architect the other day where we're going to do a project together doing this, and he said the clients changed their budget 3 times for him during the design phase, right? And I'm involved too, so it's kind of like, oh, we had this, then we had this, oh, now it's this, now it's so they're experiencing, they're experiencing problems as well. So having me in their back pocket, being able to call them, go, hey, that client, he's just changed his budget by a couple $100,000. What are we going to do? If he had no one to turn to, like, he probably would just keep designing and go, oh, well, I can't do much about it. But having a builder there to work with, it helps them, right? They see the value in it. They see. I think the biggest thing is they see what they draw or their concept. They can actually put a figure to it and go, yeah, we can do this, right? I'll keep going with this. Or, oh, okay, no, that's too much. Let's park that, right? So it's huge.
It's pivotal, because from my experience, if you've got 3 or 4 architects that see the value in this process, to the extent that they say to their clients, okay, what are you looking to achieve? Perfect. I know the builder who's the perfect match. It's Craig. We're working with him. I've worked with him before. He understands us. We understand him. And then from the client's perspective, again, easy, huge value. But once that happens, it's a one-horse race. It's a one-builder tender process, because you value managing, right? Dream come true. But some people might still be thinking, some builders on the call might be thinking, well, what's the benefit to the architect? Why would they want to do that? How do they benefit? Well, think about it for a second. If they have people coming to them, they design something. This happens to every single architect, and I say architect and designers, right? Designers and architect didn't go to uni. So they have people paying them money at the end of that process, cannot proceed because it's not just a redesign expense. It's a $500 budget. It's 1.5 build or whatever. What do you think that feels like when they have someone, and they'll have this happen, people bawling their eyes out in their office, guy and his wife, their dreams come crashing down. They're not going to refund the money, right? If they're not a sociopath, that is a 3 a.m. in the morning staring at the ceiling situation. So here you come with a solution that ensures that never, ever happens again for the rest of their career, okay? So what's that worth? Now, if you need some hard evidence as to the benefit to them, we sent out some emails to architects. We've had guys do it, and there's an email that just explains, hey, price shock's a real thing. Percentage of designs aren't getting built. Not sure if you've seen this, but by the way, big problem. Here's a solution, value management, 3 steps. We do it. If you're interested, let us know. 68% open rates. We have architects lunging at these builders, going, please help. And these are empathic people who are not enjoying being, people shooting the messenger. So the value to them is huge, just in case anyone's wondering. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, 100%.
Something else I'd like to touch on, Craig O'Leary mentioned before, or asked you, do you have an ideal client profile or avatar? And I know the best marketing strategists out there do that, and it's a really good idea. Like really understand your target market, what's the demographic, age group, profile, where do they have breakfast, what magazines they read, all that sort of thing. But for most of the builders listening, an ideal client is a client, regardless of all the demographics and the specific breakdown. An ideal client is a person that pays you money, right? Demonstrates interest. There's no higher demonstration of interest other, than handing over some money. And then the client that acquiesces to the way you do things. So they allow you to lead, and they'll say things like, hey, well, so what do you think? So they're looking at you like you are someone with credibility, and they respect you, and they are prepared to follow your lead. So you're like a doctor prescribing a solution to them. That's an ideal client, right? The beautiful thing with this value management process, and this came out of our conversations, Craig, is that they become the ideal client, because in order for the value management process to work, they have to be honest with you. As in, they have to tell you, I want to spend 2 mil. They have to tell you, you know what? We're looking at concept. It's probably blown. It's the footprint's too big already. We need to get rid of the gym or the library, and they go, oh, you know what? There's a gym around the corner. We'll get rid of the gym. So that they're having to share what's important to them, how much money they want to spend. And as you go through that process and you make 12 or 15 changes all the way through to the final design, you've established a relationship, delivered multiple touch points of value to the point where how can anyone go out to tender or want to work with another builder? It's just like, it's not going to happen, which is why it doesn't.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. That's why, I sort of said before, we're young families, because of what we're doing is trying to maximize space. Like most people are extending and renovating to a period home, they're generally looking to add, the extra bedrooms and bathrooms. So generally is sort of that younger family. But in terms of a client aspect, you're right. Like I can't nail it down, whether it's young professionals or, they're all different walks of life. It's kind of irrelevant. Once they sign into this though, they become the perfect client in a way of, there's all different personalities. That's no problem. We can navigate around that, but they really do open themselves up to you. They really do. And they have to. Like that's one of the things we do say. We cannot do this without your transparency. Like we'll go around and so it's like, if you're going to hold back 500,000 on us thinking that we're going to overcharge you or something, it is not going to work. Like, and they buy in, and actually, they really do. They become transparent. You learn a lot about them. And they find it so valuable. Like you said, in the end, they're calling you up going, hey, what do you think about this?
Yeah. But that so George, just open up the chat here. There's some comments. I might trawl through just see some of the earlier ones as well. Make sure we cover off any questions we may have missed. But George is just saying it's a great discussion, but ultimately you need to have a client that has a mentality of value for money, not one who is shopping around for a gold-plated product at a brass-plated price. So, but that, George, this is why the process works. Like I gave you an example. This is a couple in Bundaberg that I'm working with. The client literally had a $500,000 budget. The architect designed something for 1.4 million. Okay. With the value management process, you find out on day one that they want to spend $500,000. So, what can you build for $500,000? That's the question. That they would find that out. So it's not about having beer money, champagne taste. Like if that's the case, you're going to identify, they're going to essentially face reality, right? Which is what you want to do in life, right? How close can you get to reality? And that's what we're doing. Like, here's the money you want to spend. Here's what you want. Here's what you can actually get. That's what you're doing, right? Like
And the beauty of that, Kurt, is having this process. If like you found out day one, like, okay, they're so far from the budget. Is it worth progressing with that? Whereas back in the day, you would have done all the work on that, still provided the price at the end of it, and lost the job. So
they'll shoot the messenger. So
of course they will.
Builders are friggin' thieves, and
greedy, and
yeah, exactly. And their trust in the industry drop. Like, this is why this process, like I say, the new frontier will help raise standards in the industry. It also restore trust big time.
Yeah.
And so Justin's saying, we all know the architect will always get carried away and design the dream regardless of the cost. Yes, that's why it adds value to them as well. Then the quoting builder gets lumped with telling the client that they're over budget. Exactly. Justin, you spot on, mate. This is why the solution is so important, because, and just recognizing that you are the messenger that gets shot because people are getting bad news and it hurts their feelings, man. Like, walk a mile in the man's shoes. Imagine that was you. You're building this home for your family, for your kids, and then some guy comes in and tells you, no, it's not $500,000, it's 1.5. And now there's no way you can proceed. And what's going to happen if they wait? Like, let me wait till next year or 2 years, right? What happened to the people that said that? And we all would know someone that said that 3 years ago. I'll just wait. Well, if they had $1 million then, they need 1.5 now, right?
Yep.
That's just the reality. So waiting is not going to help. Rather, look at what you can get for what you've got to spend.
Craig, just on, and I hate keep on going back to COVID, but that material price rise and labor price rise that happened as a result of that, and obviously still continuing from a labor perspective now in terms of finding good people, and the good people, they're not cheap. Was that part of your, because I think you mentioned 4 years ago is when you started to change. Am I right in saying that? So did that have an impact? Maybe architects weren't keeping up to date with pricing, and maybe that has caused,
Yeah, you're actually spot on. That's going to become really prevalent now. I think about it, like, without even thinking about it. COVID was a bit because we got hit, right, with the massive price rises in material. And then labor's caught up, obviously, with cost of living. So labor prices have slowly increased rather than just bang, they've increased like materials. Labor's caught up as well. And I think, Kurt, we were only talking about this not long ago. I think it is studies around and data around that. It's pretty much 50% more to build these days, collectively across material and labor. And that's exactly right. I thought, wow, how am I going to gain accurate pricing now? I can't just throw out a price like I used to. And that's why this process right now is relevant, because nobody, and I mean nobody, really knows where construction is at the moment and how much more it's a daily conversation for me with people I know going, oh, where's it at the moment? Are you seeing supplies come back a bit? How is it? Is it going to ease? Is construction pricing still going up? Like, nobody has a handle on sort of where it sits. And although materials have slowed and we might see small percentages of relief rise and fall like we used to, Labor's going gangbusters at the moment, which all builders will be out there understanding. The price of their guys is going for good people too is going up. So
it comes back to educating, it's just managing expectations, right? Like letting people know, which I always tell that story. I've told you guys a story about I exhibited at the International Builder Show, which just finished in Las Vegas last year. And the year before, I had to get because we're exhibiting, you create a booth, there's joinery, and they create the stand and blah, blah, blah. And I had a Zoom call with a company in Vegas, and the guy's opening line. So it's a sales call for them. I'm a potential customer. The guy's opening line, this is a great example of positioning. He said to me, just so you know, exhibiting in the US, in Vegas in particular, is the most expensive place in the world by far, including places like Dubai. We start at 80,000 US to build your booth, which is 128,000 Australian dollars, right? So that was setting expect. I was like, what the, like, you know what I mean? And I ended up using someone else. It was about 30 grand, but like, yeah, you've got to let people know price shock is a real thing. If you had it's as simple as saying, if you had $1 million 3 years ago, you'll need 1.5 today. Okay. And look, tell us what you want to spend. If you don't tell us, can't help you. But if you do, we can go to concept and get an idea of what's possible. So Julian, do you want to go through some of these comments? I need to
Yeah, there's just one thing I've been saying. I was thinking that we need to go through the questions, but just one thing I want to add there from Craig in terms of how you formulated your process. I would imagine, and you can convince me if I'm wrong, but I'd imagine before that you probably weren't the type of builder that was on site all day, every day, busy all evening doing estimating. I'm getting that feeling that you might correct me if I'm wrong, but kind of I think what happens is a lot of people get really stuck working in the business, and they're partially on or off the tools. They're on the phone all day long, emails all day long, estimating, trying to get things happening. That actually working on your business in your marketing or your sales process or your communication with architects and all that thing. I think a lot of people can't even comprehend the ability to be able to do that because they just rushed off their feet so often. And I would imagine, you probably have systems and processes outside of this that was helping you, allowing you to have that time to do that. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, cool. It's a very good question, and it's one that it sort of came off the back of me growing to the next level and saying, okay, I need to get off or not out of the business and work on it a lot more, right? And that was one of the aspects that once I sort of turned over that leaf, then I started concentrating on the business, like on all of these processes. Because I freed up a lot more time, right? Once I knew got the on-site component of it right, which is key. Don't lose track of that. That definitely is key. Then we worked more on the business. It gave me a lot more time and clarity rather than just doing a job, finishing it, doing a job, finishing it, and just getting stuck in that cycle of going, where's my next job coming from? Yep, I'll do that one. Yep, I'll price that. To actually just take a breath and look at whilst jobs are running to say, hey, how can we get better? How can our processes get better? I mean, regardless if you're in this as a builder and you're in a business, you should be doing this anyway, regardless, every day, no matter what level you're at. And I'm still tweaking all of my stuff now.
Yeah.
Like this is not a set and forget. Like, oh, I've done all the hard work. It'll just run itself. Like I'm tweaking this daily, or how can I get better? How can I evolve? What can I add that is providing more value to this again? What's another layer? Because soon 50 other guys are going to do the same thing. So what am I going to do? That's the next phase again. What else can I offer? So yes, you're right. It's hard once if you're out there, you're site managing, you're doing everything yourself, and then you're coming home at night. You've got to worry about other things as well. It's hard to work on the business, but it will happen. But that was that growth aspect of saying, okay, I need to leave site behind, and now I need to flip. And I just pushed myself into it. To be honest, I don't know if I was ready, but I just had to push myself overboard and say, just get involved in this, because otherwise you're not going to have a job in 2 years. There's nothing going to be coming in unless you change what you're doing.
Yeah, but I think it's as well. It's like the things around your business that can help you focus on your business is important. Like so, and not to sort of do a plug on it, but if you're using Build Exact or Hazuko, it's going to help you from your estimating and your job management and your safety. If you've got someone like Kurt, you've probably got someone. If you've got Kurt's personality, he doesn't seem like he's shy of giving you a bit of a kick up the arse when he wants you to do something.
100%.
Although, and using a good bookkeeper that understands the construction world is really important. Be able to give you good advice, be able to take things off your hands. I always say like the best athletes and the best performers in the world all have coaches.
Yeah.
Chris Bumstead is one of the best bodybuilders ever in the world. He has a coach. Cristiano Ronaldo has a coach. I'm sure LeBron James has a coach. They all have coaches to people to help them to perform, because if you've got someone taking care of some of the other bits around your business, you can actually focus on the bits that actually really matter to driving you revenue. Whereas, and I hope you don't mind me saying this, Kurt, but the Sorky report that came out recently, same thing every bloody year. More leads, more leads, more leads, more leads, more leads, more leads. And there's very rarely ever an acknowledgement of how do I convert those leads more? Like, how do I get more out of what I've already got rather than just trying to farm more to come in?
You guys are spot on. This is why I always maintain, and when we have live events, I talk about how this is the best time ever in the history of mankind to be in business because of the quality sharing of information and access to people. And success in business is about people and process. And if you put in best practice process in place and you've got someone to help you, guide you through the sequence of systems implementation, and you've got a great accountant, bookkeeper, marketing strategist, business coach, whatever it is. I'm not saying you have to work with me. I'm not everyone's cup of tea, but you will get there. And Craig, you're a great example, mate, of like, you had that awareness. Hey, like I need to work on my business to build a successful, business that runs well. And you've discovered something, which is you're a trailblazer. Like you're doing something that like, and I'm right behind this. We've been trying to get on the morning show to communicate what we've spoken about today to the Australian public and anyone who will listen, because I honestly believe this is going to transform the industry.
Hey, Kurt, a question for you. I noticed Craig Martin's asked this question, and I understand the various differences in regional centres versus some of the metro areas. And he says that local inquiries expect a free quote. What else can be done? Like, is there still an opportunity to do a free quote but lock them down to an exclusivity period through a contract, or you just like there needs to be some value delivery there? And
just on that, like, sorry, Culture, there's no one there, and I put this challenge out to any builder that's listening to this now, or this is being recorded, you're hearing this in 12 months time or whenever. I've been coaching for 20 years. There is no builder that I've worked with that hasn't been able to start charging for quotes. None. And I've worked in every, so the US, New Zealand, the UK, here in Australia, I've coached someone in Kalgoorlie, Tasmania, Northern. It does not matter if you're metro, regional, every single one, 100% of them have been able to charge for a quote. And to your point there before, like everyone's going to want a free quote, right? Like you've got to understand, like if you're working with someone like myself or doing what Craig's doing, you're going to not be doing what the masses do, right? It's conventional wisdom is to still go to an architect first, then get a price, then get it built. What we're doing is best practice. Best practice is the best possible system that you can put in place. So if you use a sporting analogy, if you look at guys that play for Australia or represent their country, the All Blacks or whatever, what they do in terms of diet, mindset, training is very different to what someone does on the weekend. So what Craig's doing is very different to the masses. But if you look at the masses, we've all heard the stats. 80% of businesses don't make it through 5 years. The 20 that do, 80% of them don't make it through, right? So where do you want to play? Do you want to follow the masses? And people that want a free quote, they just don't understand that a free quote is not worth the paper it's written on. 80% of free quotes are not accurate. So no one's actually sat them down and gone, hey, that's reality. Coming back to successful people live as close to reality as possible. That's why even in medicine, they follow evidence-based medicine. What does the research say? What does the data say? And we have access to data now better than ever before, right? So once you put that out to someone, you may as well have no quote because it's not going to be accurate 80 or 90% of the time. There's a great book called How Big Things Get Built that talks about this across all industries, but mainly construction. And then because of it, you get strategic misrepresentation where people fucking lie, right? And not because they're bad people, it's because they need cash flow. they're trying to pay expenses on a previous job. So they'll lie on delivery times, on margin, whatever. It's not accurate. They haven't got the time and the energy and the process and access to people to get it right. Okay. And there's lots of industries that do that. Like real estate agents do it all the time. So there's literally a term, strategic misrepresentation, throw that into ChatGPT and see what it's born out of people not having accurate numbers, right? So, but you're not going to see, and I don't think you'll ever have a world where everyone's following best practice, because that's an 80-20. 80-20 principle is a real thing, but it blows my mind that so many intelligent people will still follow the masses. If you wanted to optimize your health, and your cardio and you want to go to the gym and you want to get strong, like Julian, are you going to go look at what the average guys do, or are you going to look at what's that guy, Chris Yeah, like if you want to optimize, so you want to optimize your profit cash flow workflow, what are the best people doing? Like if you want to get physical health, what's his diet? What's his mindset? You know what I mean? Like it's next level. Like to me, this is so freaking common sense, but it's like there's not a lot of it around for some reason, right? Like you just need to, anyway, I'll stop my rant there.
Craig, I'll just jump in. Look, I understand where the builder's come from. Around it. Like I just ask, what is he doing differently? Because is he just giving the same quote? Is he going to offer a full bill of quantities? Like, is he going to stand out from the other builders in his region? That's what we're kind of talking about. You can't say, oh well, no one's charging for quotes, so I can't charge for quotes. I get it. It looks like it's really hard, the competition. But if you're going to charge, what are you doing to absolutely stand out that's different? Because if you're just doing what they're doing and you're supplying something very similar, then okay, they're gonna look at everybody else around the area, right? But that's all you can do is try and look within and just keep improving and saying how can I stand out opposed to the next guy. We've been building in this region for 25 years plus. Like the experience of around the type of build. Are you building something slightly niche, different to what they are? Are you a little bit passive? So maybe look at the company and look what can I add to my company that's slightly different to the guy up the road and the guy up the road, or am I just going to build exactly the same homes as those other builders in my region? So, just keep looking at ways you can slightly improve, slightly be that little bit different, which is what myself and everyone's had to do. Because if we just toe the line with everybody else, we're just going to be a number, right?
You need to add value, man. You need to differentiate. You need to add value. I can see there's a guy on the call who, I don't know if he's saying before you BS Kurt or before you BS Kurt. I tried it last year and lost every lead. Craig, what was your process? Did you have a process? Like, if I can I'll send you my process, Craig, and follow it to the letter. And when I say process, sales process, people will pay you. This is my guarantee. I mean, this is being recorded, right? Craig, I could guarantee you, right? I will get people paying you for a quote and thanking you for the privilege of paying you. I say that to all my builders, right? You just need to know how, like, you can attest to that, Craig. Like, they thank you because the value you bring it's off the chart, man. They just need to understand and see it, and you need to communicate it well.
Yep.
I think as well, it probably comes down to the type of projects you're building and stuff, and how much work goes into the quotes and stuff as well. So maybe there's an element of maybe Kurt, and you might cut me off in saying this, but maybe some projects on the lower end, maybe that is a lot harder to get a quote charged for. But maybe when you start shifting your business to be doing a different type of build, maybe that becomes a lot easier. And maybe that's the first thing. It's like maybe these homes are not going to do the profit margin levels that you want to do. So maybe it's positioning your business in a different way, different clients, different builds, etc.
There is just this, Craig's kind of responding here. He's saying his process is identical to mine. There's no ways it's identical. And there is, like, I've had guys that are following a process, but they don't believe it, right? If you don't, it's like if you're playing sport, but you believe you're going to lose, or you're not actually playing, just sitting there. It's not gonna help. But Craig, email me info@builderscoach.com.au. I'm happy to have a chat and run through this. I love a challenge, man. I guarantee there's something missing there. There's definitely something missing in the way, maybe the way you're doing it. There's also specific scripts you need to use, things you need to say at certain times. We call those critical distinctions. So anyone listening, like again, yeah, I can guarantee it. Like I've never had anyone not be able to do it.
Might be worth going through the quick questions and stuff, Kurt. Well, we've kind of touched on some of it. There's one here from Matthias in terms of, are you able to share your preliminary process using BuildExact? So do you outsource it to like a ProCalc or to an estimator to do sort of a quick?
That's what I recommend. Like think about it, right? Like if you've got someone who's better at doing it than you, which is any quality estimator. I know most guys may have tried estimators and then got stung because they got something wrong, but you've got to, again, seek out the guys in there. There's only 3 in Australia that I can point to that I know what they're doing, right? So one, you're adding value there because of the accuracy of the numbers. You got a quality, remember, process and people. You got quality people on your team. It's the same with your architect. You want quality documentation and good turnaround time. But think about the time it frees up. Like if you're not doing the quote, I know everyone listening absolutely freaking loves quoting. Okay, and I'm sorry to have to take that off you because you get a lot of enjoyment from it and a lot of fulfillment. Obviously, I'm being sarcastic here, right? You're doing something you fucking hate doing. You're giving it to someone else. Ask yourself how many hours a year will that free you up, and then what could you do with that time? Take half of it and invest it in your family, right? In your kids and your wife. Go on a date night or something. And then the other half invested in working on your business. This is why anyone I start working with, if they don't already charge for quotes and use the sales process, day one conversation, I get them doing it within 2 weeks. And then we free up time and we can focus on other areas of the business. And that's how you get a leg up, right? It's the 80-20 rule or Pareto principle, which I won't go into, but I think what was your question, Julian?
It was just around like Matthias was asking, like, can you share your preliminary process using BuildExact? So Craig, do you do anything from in BuildExact?
Craig uses it, yeah. So that's a good question for Craig.
Yes. How do you?
Yeah, cool. So the concept pricing, I use ProCalc. That's what I use now.
Yeah.
And then my detailed bill of quantities after that through working drawings is through BuildExact.
Yeah.
Yep.
Look, guys, I just want to stress, like, use what you need to.
Yeah.
Most efficient in your business. Like we've done a few events with Richard from ProCalc. Great tool, being able to give you a quick idea or a range. It works as a range of a product. If that's going to an estimator to do a quick, I forget what Hayden often uses, Kurt. Quick building estimate, I think he uses QBE. BuildExact, we're going to be introducing a lot in the next 3 or 4 months that are going to be able to do a lot of stuff using AI and takeoffs and stuff inside our platform. So there's a lot of different ways that you can be able to speed up this process. Obviously, you want to do a check and stuff to make sure that the range and stuff, but there's a lot of ways you can do this to get this out really quickly to a client that you maybe couldn't do 5, 6, 7 years ago. I'm just zipping through. Average price to charge for quotes. Again, I think that's probably going to be a bit of a how long is a piece of string? Depending.
No. I've got an answer for that.
Have you? Okay.
Yeah. So the estimators we use, they charge 0.35%.
Okay, sorry. So
just slightly more than 1/3%. So on $1 million project, it's $3,500. So then you can either take that fee, like charge that fee to your client and pass it directly on to the estimator, because once they pay you again, they recognizing value. It's a strong indication of interest. Your conversion rate's going to go up just by virtue of doing that. And you're not really going to make money charging for quotes, but most guys would put maybe $500 on just for their time. So charge $4,000 on $1 million. So this is just charging for quotes, not even looking at value management. Value management's actually where, again, you add the most value. Yeah.
Awesome. Craig, there's another one from Matthias here. He was asking about BuildExact. So obviously we're a bit behind the questions now, but when you maybe just talk through, because it'd be good for me and I think everyone on the thing to know as well. Once you've got that information in ProCalc and you've got that range and you've got that client saying, yeah, cool, and you start working it out, is it then just going in and using BuildExact to do all your takeoffs and your measurements, or do you use an estimator? You do?
Yeah, no, I use Build Exact for my estimates and my takeoffs. I've got the formulas and stuff attached. So once it gets to more that value management working drawing phase, I I use ProCalc, but I also put the numbers in myself as well
To give you a
during
bit of a
the concept, just to check roughly some pricing as well. So I'm getting a guide from both angles. But when it comes to actually the value management stage, that's when we start entering things in and being more accurate with materials and exactly what's going in there. Yeah.
Yeah, sending out RFQs and stuff as well potentially during that process. Yeah.
Yeah. We can set up the whole. You can get your contractors involved, and if you need to, if there's a special item that you need to get priced up that you're unsure about, you can send out your quote system, stuff like that. So that's more the in-depth, because you're actually looking to provide a proper tender at the end of it, like a serious quote with bill of quantities. But I just found ProCut really easy and simple for that initial phase to provide the accuracy, and they can help you with that. They can set how you want to structure it as well. So yeah.
Yeah, awesome. And then one from Karen here. Did you implement the preliminary agreement in stage 1?
Preliminary agreement, yes. Yes,
So
after stage 1. So stage 1, we provide the concept to them at a fee. Okay. So then they can take and do what they want with that. And then we get into the prelim agreement for the second stage. Yes. So the second stage where a lot of the work comes in, that's where we actually officially sign on together to say, hey, we're going to take you through to this step for whatever the fee is irrelevant. And this is what's involved. So yeah, we felt that offering something for a small fee early doors, just a concept price, was a good way to get them engaged. And then once they get that price, they're more like, okay, wow, how do we work with you to get to that budget? Then we enter a prelim agreement after that.
awesome. There's a question here from Craig around like working with architects. And I might just kind of paraphrase and maybe throw to you, Craig, on this. But when you're reaching out to architects to sort of work with them, I'm guessing you probably work with a handful of people that you're probably quite close with now. How did that initially start? Like, is it picking up the phone? Is it going to see them? Can you talk through that?
Yeah, look, networking is huge. So, I've met them at different events. So get yourself out there if you can. Different industry nights, if you get introduced by other people that you might know there. So that's huge. And then, you get the conversation going. How do you work? How do you work? What are you in? And if you've got a sort of a connection there about your niche, we do a lot of that stuff. Then I lead with, hey, I can send you something out, and that's the information around how we work and why. 9 times out of 10, it's great reception from everyone. We've found it's been terrific. Don't worry, there's still the architects that we don't work like that. We still go through a tender process. That's what we do. That's fine. All right. It's easier to know, who's open to working with you. There's some people that have no idea about it. There's some architects that have, we've got something similar in place, but hey, send it to me because I'd like to see yours versus what we're actually using with someone else. So it's been good, but definitely get yourself out there, whether that's just an email blast, whether that, like I said, I think, something about face-to-face, connecting with someone is always good. So, networking, I always try to put at least, one night, a fortnight, at least to try and get out there to something in the industry that I can to sort of rub shoulders with people. And you'll be really surprised with, what comes of that.
Yeah, I think again, Craig, you're sort of touching on that, ability to be able to do that with your time. And there's things that you need to implement to be able to do that, because most builders are, especially small builders, are just working 60, 70 hours a week trying to get everything done and keep up to date with everything. It's impossible to be able to go to networking events. And
a lot of Julian, just a lot of builders don't realize that network marketing, what Craig was talking about, is the number one, by far and away, the number one marketing strategy. So there's so many guys that are dropping money on Facebook advertising and getting all these, trying to generate leads from complete strangers, when establishing, again, 3 or 4 quality relationships, you're in the 7-figure club, from my experience, right? So maybe they don't have time, but if you just bite the bullet and then make some time, sacrifice some time if you have to, just for 3 months to establish and seek out the right relationships. Most guys, they don't realize they need to set the standard. That's leadership. Where do you want to play? What are the standards? Craig has high standards, and then seek out people that play at your level, and then best practice, right? And yeah, there's a huge amount of work that can come through just from networking.
Yeah, and I think like obviously we've been spotlighting on you, Craig, today in your story, but I've done tons of events where I'm at with Master Builders. We've done events with Craig O and Kurt. We've done these Systems for Success events and with a bunch of other partners. And one of the things for me is that I learned so much from just the people, like from Kurt, from Craig, from the guys at Biz Video in terms of how marketing is different, and then from builders in the room. And I think a lot of people gain that knowledge when you hear your peers talking. Like, I think if Kurt, myself, and Craig got up here and said the exact same things that Craig is saying, you're probably gonna be like, oh yeah, whatever. But the fact that Craig is on there telling a real story and how it worked for him, I think that is really important. And sometimes you do have to give up that time to be able to learn and implement, here at real world, and not just someone.
You're a great. I'll actually, thanks for pointing that out. You're a great example, Julian, of networking. Think about the relationships that you have with people in the industry. Like, how valuable is that? I'm not saying you don't need a website and social media and Instagram and video content and all that. You need that, but relationships are what matter most, right? Quality relationships, yeah.
I connect with some of the best from partners, from my perspective, in the industry, because those are the people that specialize in the industry, and then they're out there, they're giving their time up to go and learn and go and try and connect with other people. So
and share. It's sharing, right? Sharing information, and then there's non-competing stakeholder. That's what an architect is. Same client as a builder, but you're not competing. Then you need each other, but seek out the people that are a good fit.
It's often the people that are the most forward in giving their information and sharing it are the ones that you're gonna that will get something back, and then that you get something, and there's
a transfer of trust that occurs. If I say, hey, you should speak to Julian and use BuildExact, like, especially with me as a coach, people like a doctor, prescribe solutions, and people don't question. They follow my lead because I've got like a track record that runs on the board. And it'll be the same with you. People that like and trust you, like a friend of yours, if you go, hey, go speak to this guy, he's really good, there's a transfer of trust because they like and trust you. Yeah.
Yeah, completely. So I'm just reading if I've missed anything here. Obviously, we covered Justin's one. I think that's mostly it, guys. I'm not sure if I've missed anything. Yeah, I think that's it. Sorry, so, when you're reading it and then a message comes through and it moves you. It's so annoying when that happens. It moves the thing right down to the bottom.
I just want to reiterate, because we talk about adding value. Okay, and I want to thank Hazard Co. I'll mention them first, and then BuildExact, Mitre 10, everyone for joining the call. Julian, you're a legend. But in terms of adding value, anyone who wants any information about what Craig and I have spoken about today, I'll happily share it. Okay, there's info@builderscoach.com.au. Happy to send it out, and we genuinely want to help raise industry standards and get more guys on this path. Because if every builder niches and ideally layers their niche and then offers this value management process, it's going to help so many people. You're going to avoid a lot of pain out there.
Absolutely. And yeah, like that end bit there, try and get to networking events where there's going to be people telling their stories and sharing their experiences. It's so, like, I've learned so much just from going to that and hearing builders' stories. And you hear people that, they did things wrong initially, how they changed it, all that kind of stuff. It's so, so important. I cannot stress it enough.
Seek out like-minded people.
Exactly. Yeah. We might wrap it there, guys.
Yeah. Fantastic.
I'll do the thanks as well. That was really good. I really enjoyed that session. I feel like I learned. I think a lot of people learn. It's always a good sign that when you don't see a drop off on the number of people, and to be going for over an hour and a half and still not seeing a drop off. Even now, I've only lost, I think, 4 or 5 people in the last 5 or 10 minutes.
Hey, we've only just scratched the surface. Craig and I have been talking for like 2 weeks about this. We really start unpacking the specifics. We're just giving you, trying to give you guys some context and an overview. So.
Funny, I keep on when I'm talking, when you pop up, Craig, on your screen, I get I look at your slideshow behind is really good, but
Yeah.
I find myself really looking at the alcohol, and I'm a bit worried. It's Tuesday, and I'm already noticing all the spirits and the wine and everything that gets brought up, and I'm like, oh, I need to. This week is probably going to be a long one for me.
Man, I had a couple of drinks on the weekend and I went for a run yesterday, like a 5K run, and my legs felt like cement. I couldn't believe I had like 3 drinks on Sunday. It's taxing, but
Yeah.
We're not 21 anymore, guys.
yeah, that's for sure.
No,
Yeah.
that's true.
But Craig, thanks so much for joining, mate. That was really good. Like I think we all got a lot from that. Obviously Craig O from Hazuko as well. Really appreciate you coming on board. I think we're both in the software space. We understand how much that impacts. And it's nice to have a builder that reiterates that as well in terms of users, both Hazuko and BuildExact. And obviously Kurt, I think your knowledge in this space is is right up there. Leading the way in a lot of areas. So it's always good to get your insight in terms of our audience and everyone else's audience. So I really appreciate you as well.
Thanks for having me. I love it.
Thanks
I
for having us.
love what I do.
Yep.
Awesome. All right,
Thank you,
guys, we'll call it there. There will be a recording. You don't need to email me the second the webinar finishes, which normally happens. We'll get it on our YouTube page, the BuildExact page, and I'll post it in the Facebook group, the BuildExact Facebook group. If you're not on there, BuildExact Building Block, a lot of the announcements, product features and stuff get popped in there. So definitely join that, and we will say goodbye. I don't think there's any other last minute questions, but yeah, all good.
Thanks,
Awesome.
guys.
Thanks,
Have a good one.
guys.
Take care.
Cheers.